into the patient if it senses that the glucose is going too high. So we see this every day, and it's happening inside of us every day. But to abstract it between inside the body and in mechanical things into something that we can do every day to improve our health, that's the trajectory that we want to hit. So in computer science, we have this newfound problem over the last 10 years or so. And we call this big data. Everybody's familiar with this term, big data. And big data is classically referred to as high volume, high velocity, and high variability in the data, and integrating these into something meaningful. And so at our laboratory in the Ramesh Jain lab, and Siripen is familiar with this also, is we try to take all of this heterogeneous data that's coming in at high speed and high volume and understand how to quickly process it into something meaningful. So we want to make sense of all of this information. And so health information is extensive, whether it's from your electronic medical record, from your Fitbit and your watch, to complex ICU machines who are always gathering data. So here's an example, and this is from a paper from one of our lab mates, Lale, who was trying to show there's all these various data parameters. So here we have an accelerometer that may be in your cell phone, maybe your heart rate being tracked from your watch, some type of event and GPS category, some audio signal received from a microphone, and some type of interaction with an environment, your calendar that is from maybe Google Calendar or your Microsoft Outlook calendar. And we want to understand how do we make sense of all this? So I want to ask a question to the audience. And a lot of you are from computer science here. How would you integrate this information into something meaningful? What would be your approach? Anybody have any ideas?
Look for some kind of the association between each parameters.
Okay.
Maybe you can compare with the time events that has happened.
Okay.
And look at the association.
So some type of correlation between data parameters. Okay. Any other ideas out there?
Maybe find some pattern from in some interval that has the same pattern on signal.
So some signal pattern. So do some Fourier transform or something like that to see if there's some pattern. Okay? So in our lab, we do what was mentioned earlier, is we transform these into events. And so I want to talk a little bit about what an event is. And this is a key pillar in a lot of our research in our labs, understanding what events are. So if we have all this data and we want to integrate it in something meaningful to understand what someone's life is about, we want to understand what they're doing. And that is the event. So for example, if you drove here this morning or took a bus, you were commuting. And then you walked from the bus station or the parking lot into the meeting. And once you're in the meeting, you did some work, and after that you took an exercise break. So these are all meaningful parameters that we can gather from the data. So when you can see a patient, for example, and say, hey, what's your daily life look like? And the patient says, well, I usually eat breakfast, and then I'll go to the office, I'll drive there, and then I'll work till 5 p.m., and then I'll go home and I'll eat dinner. This is a classical patient history for a daily life type of routine. But instead of having the doctor ask this and the patient give this data in a very subjective manner, we can now begin to say this objectively and very precise in how we define these terms. So in terms of a visual, this is maybe more of a visual in how we would process the data. So the classic things that we're working at, like right now in our lab, is we're looking at activity data, we're looking at nutritional data, we're looking at the emotional state of the patient, the medical or physiologic parameters that are relevant, and their environment that they're operating in. So theoretically, if someone's in a hot environment and their physiology is going to change. They're going to sweat. They're going to lose blood volume. Their heart rate will go up as they get dehydrated. And maybe that's going to cause them to drink some water. And then once they drink the water, they're going to feel better, and that changes their emotional status. So this is how we start to begin to tease apart the events in our data streams. So we talk about events, but really we have to get to the core of what is an event. And this is a key principle in computer science. So our professor, Ramesh Jain, he published a seminal paper in 2007 explaining what is an event framework. So when we talk about events, there's 6 categories that have been delineated to mean an event. And the first is time. Obviously, the time parameter of start the event and the event. Very obvious. The second is space. Where you are at the time of the event, where you're changing your space in the time of the event. Next part is any information related to the event. So this could mean something like you're pulling from a database for food. So let's say you have a food event, which is breakfast. So you have breakfast in the morning from 8 o'clock to 8:15. You're at your home, and the information is about the food. And that's a very niche-specific information. So maybe the nutritional content, how fast you ate, and all of those things. Fourth is part of your experience. So this has to go with what you feel during the event. And so the experience of an event can be different, even though all the other 5 parameters are the same. The next is the causation. And this is a big part of where we want to push our research. We want to understand the cause of events. So let's say, for example, you're an investor in the stock market. You want to understand the cause of why a certain share goes up in value or down in value. And people have been working on this problem for 100 years, and they still haven't been able to delineate a good way to understand causation between events. And the last is substructure of events. So not all events are happening in isolation. Events are smaller events that are gathered into larger events. So for example, walking, this is one event, a step. You could call this an event. But if you gather all these stepping events together, it becomes walking, which is a different level of event. And so that's one way to think about events. From a biological perspective, for those of you in medicine, you could think about events happening at a cellular level. You have some signal from some hormone activating a receptor. That receptor then goes and has some signal processing to the nucleus, and each one of those are events happening at a nanosecond time scale. But each of those events then go into some long-term cause. So for example, you have some iced tea, and the iced tea has sugar in it, and the sugar will then hit all these cellular receptors, and those are all nanosecond time events. But at the same time, you have a grand scale, several hour time scale event of your blood sugar response. So it may be that 2 hours later, your blood sugar changes back to normal. So you can see